Welcome to another episode of Glorious Life on Wheels Financial Fridays. I have been wanting to do a series on van life finances for a while, and with the current economic environment in our country, I thought what better time to do it. This is the third in the series, and in today's episode, I'm speaking with Sara, a young woman who shares how her and her husband Aaron, who are full-time on the road, in their first year did not have a budget, and it just wasn't good for them. And she shares the difference and how much of an improvement it made, reduce their stress, and just enhance their life so much when they set up a budget and now follow it. She's going to dig deeper into what she does and how they maintain their budget on the road. And I think this is beneficial for individuals who are on the road full-time, part-time, or even are in a sticks and bricks. I hope you'll also go back and watch the first episode in which I interviewed Diane, a 65-year-old nomad who's full-time, and share some things and adjustments she's making for her financial security on the road. And in the second episode, I hope that you'll go back and watch, I actually share some tips on setting a budget and just some basic things that will go into a budget that I think will be helpful for anyone. But come on, let's go and see what Sara has to say. Meanwhile, don't forget, Saturday Live, Glorious Life on Wheels. Come on and chat and get to know the crew. And also this Saturday, I'll have another great tour of a Nomads rig. I don't think you want to miss that. And one last thing, next week for our Financial Fridays, I'm going to actually speak to someone who is a camp host and will share what it's like and give you some insight if you want to get a job as a camp host to either increase your income or to get somewhere free to park for a while. So come on, let's go ahead and dig into this Financial Friday episode. Hello, Sara.
Hello.
I am so happy that you agreed to do this interview because I'm talking about budgeting, and you shared some really, I think, insightful things about what happened with you and your husband on the first year on the road. And now that you're just starting your second year, you've done things very differently, haven't you?
Absolutely. We have a budget, for one. We started out on the road not really knowing what our expenses were. We knew what our bills were because before we came out, I wanted to know if there was anything that we could cut out. So I knew that, but I didn't know what we were going to spend on gas. We weren't budgeting, and it just became a mess, and it became very stressful. When you don't know your ingoing and outgoing, it just adds an unnecessary stress.
Yeah, well, you know what? Why don't we sit down and you can share a little bit about what happened your first year and some of the differences now and the difference it has made emotionally with you too.
Absolutely.
Well, why don't we go ahead and sit down and we'll do that.
It's this kind of like cloud that hangs over you if you are not in control of your finances.
So you didn't know where the money was going. You were spending, like, it sounds like from what you were describing, even though you were on the road full time, you were spending like you were on vacation. You had more of a vacation mindset than this is our life mindset.
Right. Especially as new people on the road, you want to do and experience as many things as possible. And, I feel like we were moving way too fast as well.
So this is what you were traveling in, this?
Yep, this is a 23-foot 1994 Tioga Montera Class C.
Okay.
And I travel with my husband and our cat.
Was this the first time that you had been RVing or had an RV?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, wow. So you were a total newbie.
Yeah, we really jumped into it feet first, for sure.
So now you were saying, how were you traveling? Were you staying for a week or two, or were you traveling every day? How were you traveling?
Yeah, we were traveling quite a bit. Maybe we would stay a couple nights here, a couple nights there. And we were in California and Nevada. Gas is very expensive.
Yes, it is.
So we were having to fill this big boy up quite a bit. And it goes very quickly. I mean, in California, I think it costs $200 to fill up a 55-gallon tank, maybe more. So it was just becoming very expensive, where if we had slowed down, we would have been able to catch up and not spend quite so much every 2 days.
Okay. If you can hear some partying in the background, even though it's daytime, they're still having fun over here at the meetup, even though the meetup's over. But so you're saying you just traveled constantly.
Yeah.
Were you able to really enjoy the places that you were going to, traveling like that?
I mean, not, it's so much better if you can sit in a place and really feel out the town and the views. And, we really out here on BLM land, because they give you 2 weeks, you really get to sit and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Traveling quickly is fine sometimes, but not all the time. And it didn't work for us financially. And also it's exhausting.
And you were telling me you found out it's not all a fairy tale existence.
Right. This is life. There's the expectation versus reality. And, at first it's extremely exciting. And it's beautiful, and it is still exciting. But we also have to deal with real life and making sure that we have the money to continue to do this, that we're not going to crash and burn, and that we take care of ourselves and our animal and just do it responsibly.
Now, one of the things that you said that you did have is an emergency fund.
Yes.
And you were telling me about a repair. Do you want to tell me about the repair that you had and how much it was and what it entailed?
So we were in a beautiful place called Walker Lake in Nevada, and we got there. We drove pretty much all day, got there, started a fire, and in the morning we realized our house batteries were not charging. So this runs our water pump and our fridge. And because they were not charging or not charged, our generator would not start either. So we were dead in the water. We had no power. We could drive it, but we couldn't live out of it.
So you were in a auto or RV repair shop for how long because of that?
I believe it was three nights, 4 days.
And how much was the repair?
Ultimately, I believe it came out to about $1,200.
But you had an emergency fund.
Yes, I didn't have to worry about if we could pay for it or not. I just asked them how much is it. It was such a relief to be able to do that.
Even though you might say, this is the pits, this sucks, we hate having to do this.
Yes.
It's a whole different level of stress from not having the money and not being able to do the repair and being stuck.
Absolutely. And we also had to go to an RV park until we could get in for the repair, so we could have power.
Right.
So we had to be able to pay for that as well.
Yeah.
Which was we took out of our emergency fund.
Now, you were telling me you think an appropriate emergency fund is how many months?
For RVing, probably 6 months.
Of living expenses?
Yes. And, because to repair some stuff on the RV can be very expensive. We're still learning about our systems and everything, and we do some minimal repairs ourselves, but we just want it done right. So we tend to take the RV to a mechanic to do our brakes and all that type of stuff.
Right.
And we have the 6 month kind of, that's my recommendation, because if something were to happen to, let's say, if the engine went out in an RV, that's about $10,000. It can be very expensive. So you want to be able to cover that expense. Obviously, then you would then go back and build up your emergency fund, but you can cover it.
So basically what you're saying is the length, or the amount rather, of the emergency fund has a lot to do with the type of vehicle you have and the cost of the expenses to that vehicle.
Absolutely. To replace a E350 engine is different than replacing an engine in a Toyota Sienna. So you have to weigh that when you're considering how much you need for an emergency fund.
Now, you were saying before that money was flying out. You didn't know where it was going. The first year you were traveling quickly. You were doing a lot of things differently this year. So now you're using a system, and what is the system that you're using to budget with now?
Yeah, so I use it for work as well, but it's called Google Sheets. It's part of the Google suite of tools. You can go online. It's free. It's basically Excel online.
Well, I hear Excel all the time, but I have no clue what it is. So why don't we go over here and sit down, and you can show us the sheets, and then show us what it entails and how you keep your budget now. And for people who are just starting out budgeting, I think this will be very helpful.
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay, let's go sit down and do that.
Awesome.
All right, so I don't understand technical stuff. And we're not going to give your exact numbers.
Yeah.
So tell me what's on the item lines on this.
Yes. So I have when I was paid, my deposit amount, and then I write down all the bills I have for the next 2 weeks.
So those are your set bills.
Set bills. Those are the things that all my bills are automatically deducted. So from our account, just so we don't have to worry about paying them late. And so those are set. Those come out every single month. So like we have a credit card bill. We have, we have our RV insurance. I also give to Patreon, so our money that goes to Patreon.
And I imagine you have phone bills. And
Correct.
So the bills that are the same every month, the expenses you have written down.
Yes.
And then you have a certain amount for that.
Yes. And so I subtract my deposit amount
from your set bills.
My set bills.
Okay.
And that amount left over is what I have left for the coming 2 weeks. So I get paid bi-monthly. Right?
Okay. So then on the list there, it looks like then on one side you have the amount that you spend for an item. Like what's the first item on there, for instance?
Yeah. So we have the first item. We had an old DirecTV bill. We paid $118.13, and then the next one will always be on here.
So basically then you have your set bills, the amount you spend, and then what's left over is what's at the bottom of that list.
And we keep track of everything we spend that leftover money on. So
you have a column then that for the next 2 weeks, say I have $200, let's say. So everything you spend, you put down, and then you keep track of how much is left out of that $200, say?
Absolutely. So in spreadsheets, you can create formulas so it'll automatically deduct it from your final amount.
So when you get, say if you have $200 left for the next 2 weeks, when you get down to zero and you've spent that $200, then you stop spending.
Absolutely. Because of this tracking system, we actually are not living paycheck to paycheck anymore. It makes us much more aware of our spending. And so we really do stay within our means, below our means.
Now, being as OCD as I am, I'd be checking it all the time.
Yes.
How often do you check to see how much is left for, say, the next 2 weeks? How often do you check that?
Oh, absolutely every day, maybe multiple times a day.
Okay.
We're always putting in receipts. If Aaron goes shopping, obviously you have your banking app and it can tell you what you spend, but having receipts is kind of great as well. So I can go through, make sure I have everything listed on here for the day and see what we have left.
And you keep your receipts all in one spot?
I do. Once they go in though, we recycle them or throw them in the fire.
Okay, but you keep track of them. Yeah. And now let me ask you this. So do you have in your budget where you have a certain amount that's your monthly spending, do you have savings or investment in there, or is that something else?
Absolutely. So every time I get paid, I put money in the savings.
And that's part of your fixed expenses? So you're basically paying yourself first.
Absolutely, because that's the easiest point. When you get paid, you have the money, you can put it away. Now, because we are kind of doing much better, at the end of the 2 weeks, anything left over, I also put in savings.
Okay. So it sounds like it's just completely changed your whole...
Oh my gosh. We don't even talk about money anymore.
Wow. Wow.
It's really... It can be a scary thing to really see what your expenses are and how much you have to have on a monthly basis, but also it's extremely freeing.
It can be a scary thing to find out you have an illness, but you want to know so that you can get treatment.
Right, absolutely.
So it's the same thing. It can be scary with knowing where your finances are, but you can't address it until you know where they are.
100%, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it, Sarah, you taking the time and
Of
going
course.
over this and showing what a difference having a budget and working that budget is. And we'll catch up with you maybe in another 6 months. You've been on the road rather, a year, and see,
Yeah,
if you've made any tweaks or doing anything different.
that would be fantastic.
Now, do you have a YouTube channel?
I do not yet, but you're encouraging me, so
I am.
very
So when
soon.
you do, we will start it, and hopefully it'll be on budgeting because you're so good at it.
Yes, the first video out of the gate for sure.
All right. I'll talk to you later. Thank you so much, Sarah. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Carol.